In this video, I want to spend a little time talking about DKIM, DMARC, and SPF and setting things up, especially for us marketers that use bulk senders or email autoresponders to send out emails specifically to Gmail and Yahoo. Now, you can see here, Gmail protections for a safer, less spammy inbox. They're saying started in 2024. Actually, that's right now or very soon here in February 2024. They're going to implement these changes. Also, Yahoo is doing the same thing for a more secure, less spam, or an overall better experience for their users. Now, here on the channel, or specifically inside of my affiliating, how to build a profitable online business, I talk about these types of things inside of tools, tech, and time. This being something specifically around a tool, an email autoresponder, specifically GetResponse, and the technology of understanding how DNS works and having your own email inbox and sending out bulk emails. You need to really make sure that you're matching, or that you're making sure that you are following these guidelines and that you are aware of them. There's a great article over at GetResponse that covers this in great detail about Gmail and Yahoo's authentication changes, all you need to know, and they literally covered all you need to know. There's a link in the description for this article, but I want to simplify this for you a little bit here today and talk a little bit about the changes. As you can see, sending emails with your own custom domain as opposed to using free email domains like @Gmail in your from address. This is very important because a lot of people, when they get started, they want to quote unquote get started for free, and they start using things like @Gmail accounts or Yahoo accounts, and they don't actually buy a custom domain being something like 30minutemarketing.net, which is the domain that I own and that I send email from. So if you were to look inside of my GetResponse account, what you'll see is when I go to send an email, I have the from email address. Here I can send it from a very specific email, or I get really specific about what email I want to send it from based upon what the list is for, or if it's for a different brand or a different domain. Now, you may or may not have this set up, but the idea here is you select a from email address. This is Gary@30minutemarketing.net. This is not Gary 30minutemarketingnet @gmail.com or funnyboy3685 @gmail.com. This is a domain that I bought specifically for the brand 30 Minute Marketing. Now, you can also have a reply to address here, but this is not really, or we don't really need to worry about this. Typically, you're going to set these to the same because you want to send from an email, and you also want people to be able to hit reply, and you get that email back to your actual email inbox, or in this case, my email inbox at Gary@30minutemarketing.net. If you send me an email, or if you reply to any email that I send from here inside of GetResponse, then I'll get a response or a reply to that email. But the idea here is, if you go back to this, you are going to be setting up, or you're going to be authenticating your emails with DKIM and DMARC. You want to keep your spam complaints below 0.3%, and you also, and GetResponse does this for you, allow a one-click unsubscribe. Now, who is impacted? This is very important. So you want to make sure, again, the link in the description, check out this article, but this video is here specifically to help simplify this idea, because we're talking about Google, or what Google is talking about. They specifically say that bulk senders are those who send more than 5,000 messages to Gmail addresses in one day, so a 24-hour period. Yahoo doesn't really explain that, or they don't really define that in their definition of who is a bulk sender. But those who send fewer than 5,000 messages to Gmail addresses in one day can skip the one-click unsubscribe, or simply put, they can just opt in for SPF or DKIM. I would say go ahead and be on the safe side, like they are saying here inside of GetResponse. Recommend that all email marketers, no matter their list size or mailing frequency, adapt to these rules just to go ahead and set this up and get it done correctly. Now, let's go ahead and dive a little deeper into this idea of bulk senders. So typically when you send an email, you send it from Gary@30minutemarketing.net. It is one email to one person, joe@gmail.com. Of course, as a bulk sender, we're going to send from Gary@30minutemarketing.net, and we're going to send to Joe, to Bob, to Sally, to Susan, and we're going to let GetResponse do that for us. Again, here inside of this, we're going to select a list. So in that list, we are going to be sending to everyone that's on our list. And if that again, is 5,000 or more emails, and you need to make sure that you have this set up, but go ahead and get ahead, just like they're saying here. However, to be on the safe side, we recommend that all email marketers, no matter their list size or mailing frequency, adapt to these rules. So what are these rules? We're talking about DKIM, DMARC, and SPF. We want to check off each one of these, but we need to understand first what they are. So SPF is the sender policy framework. It acts as a guest list. This is set up to allow email senders or servers to verify if incoming emails from listed authorized servers for your domain are actually allowed. So an IP address or a domain name, it's going to check the email server that receives these emails. So Gmail and Yahoo, they're going to use your SPF, your sender policy framework. And I'm going to show you these here in a second. It checks if the people that are sending the email or the emails that are being received, it checks if they are allowed. So you need to set these up. So DKIM, what is that? It provides a digital signature. This is the authentication mechanism that says, yes, the senders that were allowed, they're also authorized, and this ensures that the email hasn't been altered and are generally from the stated domain. And then you have the DMARC, which combines SPF and checks and dictates how receivers should handle emails that fail these authentications, and also allows that domain to report back to you so you know that you are sending or you have all this set up correctly, or if other people are trying to spoof or trying to act as your email. Now, I don't want to get too technical about this, but understand that this DMARC here is a combination of DKIM and SPF. So you want to check those off and make sure that you have all three of these set up. Now, specifically about the DMARC, once you have this set up, you can see here inside of my email account for 30minutemarketing.net, I'm getting these DMARC notifications where these different domains are reporting back to me, letting me know what they see and if I'm passing or failing these checks to make sure that everything is set up correctly. So you want to check those reports, and if you don't understand that, you'll need to dive in that a little deeper. ChatGPT can actually help with that, and I'll show that here in a second. But for now, I want to go back to DKIM, DMARC, and SPF, and I want to start with SPF, which again acts as the guest list, or this is the list of servers that are authorized to send on your behalf. Again, we're talking about sending from inside of GetResponse. So GetResponse has what is SPF and how to configure it. And again, we're talking about starting on February 24th, Gmail and Yahoo are rolling out new authentication requirements. And you need to make sure that you are using SPF correctly, DKIM and DMARC. So we're going to walk through this, but what we're looking here is at setting up SPF records for your domain. So we're talking about setting up DNS, and we're going to dive into this. But the big idea here is you want to include getresponse-mail.com as a verified or valid sender for your domain. Again, remember, we are inside and we're setting up our GetResponse to say, send from this email address. And we're dropping down and we're saying, send from Gary@30minutemarketing.net. So when someone receives our email, they see it from our domain, Gary@30minutemarketing.net. But the email, again, this email, Gary@30minutemarketing.net, is not coming from my specific email inbox, the one that I have purchased for that domain to send out one-to-one emails like you see here from Gary@30minutemarketing.net to Joe at Gmail. It is doing an email blast or a bulk send from GetResponse on my behalf or on the behalf of my domain. So again, you want to set up this SPF record, and to do that, what you're going to do, you're going to start by going to where you bought your domain. And I purchased all my domains over at Namecheap, and you can see here for 30minutemarketing.net, you can come down and my custom DNS is pointing to cloudflare.com. Now, actually, this is a very specific setup that I have with Groove. And if you come over to Groove, what will happen is you'll come under settings and billing. And then under Groove, what they do is they have managed their DNS. What they do is they have a connection between Cloudflare and Groove. It's very confusing, but you don't need to really worry about that at this point. Just understand what I'm showing you in this video is setting up these records inside of your DNS, whatever your DNS is, or wherever your DNS is being controlled. We're going to click Manage, and then we're going to come here for 30minutemarketing.net, and we're going to manage our DNS records. Here we have MX records, that stands for Mail Exchanger. Then we have text records. This text record is the SPF. Then we have more text records here, and you can see that this is my DKIM as well as my DMARC. Where does all this information come from? This information comes from specifically for GetResponse as our bulk sender or as our email autoresponder. You can see here for 30minutemarketing.net, I have added my DMARC, so it's good to go. My DKIM is authenticated. And if I want to update my DNS records, I simply click Update DNS Record, and then you can see that the domain is authenticated with DKIM and the DMARC record has been added. Where did I get this information, or the information you need to add is all right here. Your DKIM identifier, your DKIM key, and they give you the steps in a separate tab or window, just like we were looking at a second ago inside of Groove. Log into your domain account and find your domain's DNS records. Create a new text record and paste the DKIM identifier into the host name or field, then paste the DKIM key into the value field. So the DKIM identifier and the DKIM key. In my case, remember, over at Namecheap, I am pointing my custom DNS to DNS servers for Groove, even though it says Cloudflare. Don't worry about that confusion. This is the way Groove does it. I go back to Groove, and you can see here that I've set up my text records for my DKIM and my DMARC, and I simply just pasted in that information. For example, if I click Add New Record, I would drop this down. I would select Text. I would enter the name here and the content, and the name and the content in these fields were given to me by GetResponse under the Update DNS Record. This is the DKIM identifier and the DKIM key. So the DKIM identifier and the key go under name and content. Now, specifically going back and looking at the text record for SPF, where did this information come from? Again, I went back to GetResponse and I looked at their information or what to include in my SPF text record, and they gave me this information right here, adding an SPF record for your domain, the one that you buy. Not at Gmail, not at Yahoo, but for example, at 30minutemarketing.net. They gave me the SPF record, but this is just for GetResponse, but I need to make sure that I include the GetResponseMail.com. So I'll go back to my DNS records. If I was to open this up and look at this content, you're going to see the SPF record, and it's going to look like what they gave me here. It's going to include some other senders because remember, I also send email from my email inbox, which is actually over at SiteGround. But you can see the content right there. If I was to go back to SiteGround, and SiteGround is where I actually host, or my email inbox is hosted, as you can see by going down to email. But first we'll take a look at domain, and we'll highlight here your domain is not pointing to the site. That is because I'm pointing it to Groove. And the email, or importantly here, and I know I'm jumping around a lot, but really understand that there are a lot of tools and the technology are all combined together. So understand that the email account here, the email account for Gary at 30minutemarketing.net is actually hosted by SiteGround. This would be if you have a website, or typically the way this would look is if you have a website, you host that website on something like SiteGround, a hosting provider. They give you an email inbox as well as a WordPress site, or you build your website on that hosting service or server, and your email and your hosting service are on the same domain, or for that domain, they are on the same service for SiteGround. But in this case, I'm hosting my web pages over on Groove, but my email, because Groove doesn't do email or doesn't have the mechanism to do email inboxing, what I have here is an email account. If you go and you click on Authentication, you'll see the SPF record here, which I need to include this SPF information for my email authentication, or the SPF records, for me to be able to go back and send email from Gary at 30minutemarketing.net. If I send one email to joe@gmail.com, this comes from SiteGround. When I send multiple emails, or I send an email to my email list, that email is sent by GetResponse. So there are two senders here. One is sending one email from me to Joe. GetResponse, in this case, is sending from or on my behalf, Gary at 30minutemarketing.net, out to everyone on my email list, making me a bulk email sender. So at this point now, we understand that DKIM, DMARC, and SPF are all working together. SPF being a list of domains that are allowed to send on your behalf, so you can start sending out those bulk emails, as well as DKIM is the information that you're going to put in your DNS text records, which is a digital signature verifying that your email hasn't been altered and that it is a genuine email from you. And then the DMARC is a combination of DKIM and SPF together, and it combines those checks, and it also sends reports so you can see exactly what's happening on behalf of your domain. So again, you can see here I'm getting those reports for my domain, 30minutemarketing.net. At any point, you can download one of these files. So what you can then do is you can take that file and you can upload that file if you have ChatGPT-4 or GPT+, and then ChatGPT will take that and it will provide a detailed analysis. As you can see here, it broke down all the records. When I take that email or that DMARC report that I'm now getting for authentication, as well as the list of IPs or the domains that are allowed to send on my behalf, which is all in the DKIM and the SPF records that we set up, and that is communicating out to the internet what is allowed or not allowed, who you are, and you verified that you are a legitimate domain, you are a legitimate sender. And once you have all this set up, you are not guaranteed to stay out of the spam folder, but you are headed in the right direction. And you definitely want to make sure that you have this done before February 2024. Of course, if you got any questions, let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching. Hope it was helpful, and I'll talk to you in the next one. Bye.